I just launched on Fairfield Lake. This is the first time I've ever been to this body of water. You know, it's located just south of Dallas, north of Houston, kind of east of Waco. There's a lot of big lakes around it. A lot of people have heard of, like Richland Chambers, Lake Palestine. I mean, there's some big bodies of water in this area. This lake gets a tremendous amount of pressure, mostly in the winter time. It's a power plant lake, and you hear a lot of people that come here and fish when conditions are bad or harsh on a lot of those other lakes we just mentioned. For me, this is about adventure of fishing a new lake. I love to go to new bodies of water and decipher that puzzle to see what they're doing. What little I know about this lake is it's going to be surrounded, it looks like, by cattails. There's supposed to be some grass in here. It looks fairly shallow when I look at some of the mapping on this lake so far, with a few little creek arms. I'm gonna spend a few minutes just kind of running around, seeing what I can see. Right now it looks like I've got a water temperature in this arm of about 61 degrees. I expect it to be warmer somewhere near wherever the discharge is, and I think these fish ought to be bank shallow. I think I ought to be able to get the soft plastics out, pick apart some of this cover, and catch quite a few fish. We'll see if we can unlock the puzzle here and catch some now. You know, my first look at Fairfield was, wow, I kind of like what I'm seeing. It's not a big lake, and there's cover all the way around the bank. And by cover, it looks like there's probably 70% of the bank has some type of emergent vegetation, which is going to be reeds in this case. And it's growing out to a depth that where it looks like to me there's going to be enough water on it that I can get in there and fish it. Whether it's going to be a moving bait, such as a spinner bait, a chatterbait style bait, maybe it's a swim bait, maybe it's a shallow running crankbait. Heck, if the wind wasn't blowing so hard, I'd probably throw a topwater across it. But what I'm seeing is a lot of cover to be able to go fish. And as I'm going through the brush here, I'm trying to flip into places where I think that a fish could be spawning, or a fish is set up under kind of some heavy cover because of the sun being out, a little bit of high pressure. And finally I flip in there and get the first tug of the day. Ah, almighty, bite number one. Boy, and I mean, he cracked it right when it hit the water, all the way at the back end of this little pocket. And drop the power poles down right here, see if we can't stop. And that fish, it didn't get 2 inches below the top of the water, and he hit it on the way down. I had him on there for a second. Wasn't very big, maybe 1.5 pound, 2 pounder, but he was a good solid bite. And he was here and gone that fast. I like the way that fish bit. You know, out there on that main lake, there's a lot of wind blowing into those reeds. I'm almost too much for flipping. I've never been a big fan of all that cover banging around and the bushes banging around and the reeds banging around. So, you know, the key may be to get up in some of these more protected areas, which there's not a lot of them on this lake, and see what they'll do. That fish there definitely bit like he wanted it. This looks really good. I like all these reeds that are kind of laid over, almost creating a mat. With the sun being out, all this high bluebird sky. I've seen a lot of times you get in that type of situation and you can really catch a lot of fish out of the same little stretch once you get them fired up. You don't want to blaze through this too fast, especially the conditions we've got right now. You know, with that front kind of having come through a little bit, high bluebird. When I find an area that I think's got them, I really like to pick it apart when I'm flipping and pitching into the cover. And the spawn, which is probably going on right here underneath us, we just can't see it in the conditions we've got right now. Just not a bad time of the year or scenario to make multiple presentations to the exact same piece of cover. And it might be third, fourth, fifth pitch into some of those areas that you really think there ought to be a fish that triggers that bite. And you know, I've been amazed when I go sight fishing, you know, how many times we've pitched in, fish roll on the bait and they position on the bait and look at it, and then we take it out of there, and you know, he just says, hey, goodbye. If we'd gone back in there multiple times till we get that bite, it's the same situation right now. There's fish down there probably looking at a lot of these flips and pitches, and you know, if we take it away from them, they're definitely not going to bite it. So don't be afraid to make a lot of pitches and flips to the same piece of cover if you feel like they're there, especially in those areas where you've had a few bites.